12:30 a.m. The voice you hear is Will Sutton, and the voice you're about to hear is Chief Eddie Compass. And why are you here?
I'm here to hear you.
All righty now. So we are launching the Good Morning Show right now. We've got a couple hours with you all. Hope you had a fabulous weekend. And it was a beautiful weekend. And I tell you, today is starting off in a nice little, got a little brisk wind to it. It's not too, it's certainly not hot, and it's not cold. I can still wear a short sleeve, but kind of depends on where you're going. How was your weekend, Chief?
Oh, my weekend was very good. It was very productive. Got a lot done. Spent time with the wife. And that was always very pleasurable. We got a lot done. Yeah.
All right, for the wife.
Yeah. Regina, I told you I was going to say we had a good time. That's the real business. But, I just really relaxed this weekend and got a lot done. And, I reflected on Katrina.
Yeah.
That week was very intense. I called a lot of people and thanked them for the well wishes. I really was very respectful for people who went through the tragedy that want to call me and just pour out their hearts for what they went through. And it's amazing how many people that were in that dome stopped me during the week of Katrina just to thank me. And that touched my heart, because you think 20 years later, and it was like adults who were little kids back then who I didn't even recognize, And I worked the Saints game this week, and a lot of people.
Oh my!
Yeah. They came close, but we're not playing horseshoes, so it don't work. So, but it may be a long season. Let's hope they get it together. But just the reception that I got from the people in the dome. The whistle-head stopped me, and he went, "You Eddie Compass, you Eddie Compass." And we took a picture. He said, "Can I take a picture with you?" I said, "Of course." It was like, it was just kind of humbling to a certain extent that so many people recognize and sort of, the documentaries and Senator General Honore and I getting honored at churches and so many places. So to be just put in the same vein as a man that's as great as General Honore was humbling to me. By no means that I did more than him by any stretch of the imagination, but just to be considered someone who did enough to be honored with such a great man was very humbling to me.
Well, the Saints lost 20-13.
Yeah.
I mean, as some of we Saints fans like to say, but it was close.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
But like you said, it's not horseshoes, so you got to win. You got to get that ball over the line.
The funny thing when you work in the Saints game, I mean, people are so ebullient when the game starts. I mean, the fervor is exciting.
Yeah,
the
energy.
The energy is palpable.
Yeah,
and at the end of the game, people got their heads down.
If they lasted till the end of the game.
Yeah, a lot of people left early. But they got their heads down. They got the boot in their mouth.
That was a hell of an end, though.
Yeah, it came close. But like you said, no cigar. And, the St. Louis fans, they were like taunting a couple of Saints fans. And as a police officer, I tell them, I say, I wouldn't do that if I was you.
Yeah, right.
Don't do that, But
I mean, that just reminds me that teams have moved around,
right?
And I mean, some of us are old enough. Even if, when you say Cardinals, it still means St. Louis.
Wait, I said St. Louis.
That's right.
That's Arizona.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
But
telling my age. That's right.
Okay, who associates Arizona with Cardinals?
That's right.
Yeah, right. I mean,
just like
that's like Jazz being in Utah.
Yeah, I'm like, huh? Duh? Man, that's right.
But they wanted to keep the name, so they took that from us. So, but we got the Pelicans now. And you were taking care of your health on Saturday too.
Right.
Sounds like that was a really good.
I tell you,
event.
I went to a workshop that was sponsored by Ochsner. And it was incredible. We got our cholesterol checked. We got our prostate checks. It was a lot of information that was given by the doctors that was on the panel. And it was really informative. They had a couple of hundred people there when I was there. And I mean, when you look, especially young African American men, who are at high risk for prostate cancer, to get that checked. I get it done every year. And it was something that was very informative, and I got a clean bill of health, so I was very happy about that.
All right.
I was very happy about that. The lady that did my blood pressure, she said, "Oh my God," she said, "your blood pressure is very low," and my resting heart rate was like 54.
What?
And she said, "Man, you must run a lot." I said, "I do," but it made me. It reinforced my eating habits and my exercise habits. So,
Right.
like I said, at 67, Father Time is undefeated, but I'm gonna give him a run for his money.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I got in quite a bit of home chores.
Oh, okay. The honeydews.
Yeah,
Honeydews in the house.
It was a honeydew list, and enough to make the wife smile at the end of the weekend. So that was good. But we did get some couple time in, and took in a couple of movies and all. But I'm pretty engaged on this campaign and season. So I did go to the assessor debate on Friday night at
Right.
Alshay, and that was it was actually pretty phenomenal that the number of people who did come were clearly interested. A Friday night for a political debate.
Right. For assessor. For assessor.
And for assessor.
Right.
You're
For
right.
assessor. I mean,
But there were people there. It was a diverse crowd. And the way these by the people debates have been set up, they have them segmented into, your opening, your closing. You got the general questions that go to every candidate. You have candidate-specific questions. So this is for you, candidate A. This is for you, candidate B. There's an opportunity for a response if at the moderator's discretion. Then there are like rapid fire questions where the moderators just want a yes or no. So, and some of the questions, frankly, are hard to answer yes or no, but that's all you get is yes or no. So you see the candidates going,
and they do that on purpose.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
the ones I like when the candidates can ask each other questions.
Yeah,
I love those because those to me are more impactful because it's like the candidates have done research on each other. And they know the story about certain problems they may have had in the past. And a lot of the public or the people who are moderating debates, they don't know these things because they're not doing that deeper dive into research.
That's right.
So I love when they have debates.
And that happened on Friday night.
Yeah.
So the
like
challengers were able to ask incumbent assessor Errol Williams questions.
Right.
And one of them is how come? I mean, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but how come you always have to have the runaround? Go over here. Go over here. Go over there. I mean, it just can't seem to get an answer and can't seem to get something fixed and that kind of thing. But Mr. Williams was on top of it, of course. He should be 40 years doing that work.
I'm telling you.
But he was talking about the staff that he's built and the multiple languages that people in his staff speak, and that a lot of their work at the assessor's office is explaining the assessor's office. And so people feel they have the runaround, but really is that they don't know how the assessor's office works, or people come there for things that aren't related to the assessor's office. But it was, really good to have him challenged by the challengers who were, who are seeking his office. And I like it when it happens like that.
And sometimes it gives the incumbent of situation where he can show, in this case, his expertise, that he's an aficionado and very adroit at doing the job. So sometimes it backfires on the challenges, So you gotta be careful when you throw that out there because it might blow up in your hand,
Yeah, right.
And then it might flip it. Well, what would you do?
Yep, right.
And then like Jackie Gleason on a honeymoon. Hamada. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. For those of you who are over the age of 50, you understand what that is. For you young kids, Google it.
Yeah, right. Google.
Ralph Crandall. Google him.
Google. All right. Well, of course, we're talking about the campaign for assessor, but it's campaign season. And those of you who are interested and want to fuss and debate and discuss and say, what you think. It doesn't really matter if you don't vote,
Right.
and it doesn't matter if you can't vote because you're not registered to vote.
Right.
So once again, I want to remind you that we have an important election on October 11th. That is now in just a short few weeks.
Right.
I mean, there is not much time until election day, and there's even less time to cast. I have the opportunity to cast the first vote because early voting starts on when? September 27th.
It's close.
It's
close.
already September, people. It's already September. So you can get registered by September 10th by mail, and you can get registered online by September 20th. And you can get registered in person if you'd rather take care of it by yourself in person, talking to somebody on September 10th. So it does not take that long to register to vote. And if you think you are registered to vote, it doesn't take that long to check your registration to make sure that you are registered to vote. Because if you've missed several elections, but for good reasons, maybe Granny needed to see you 2 states over. Maybe you needed to go and help baby boy at college. Maybe you were in the hospital. I mean, so let's just give you some lots and lots and lots of grace over the last several elections.
A lot of latitude.
Yeah, let's say you had a lot of good reasons for not voting in the last several elections. Well, you might find that your name is no longer on the polls. So please, 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 please check that and get in gear, get registered so you can make the decision whether to participate in early voting, which starts on September 27th and ends on October 4th. And election day is October 11th. So as things heat up, we're going to see more and more from a number of the candidates, and not just the mayoral candidates, but we had some campaign ads launch in the last few days. Look to see more of that on television. You'll probably see some print. You'll probably see a number of mailers. I got to tell you, I got a bunch of mailers just in the last few days.
I just
not
moved
even a week.
I just moved in my house. I said, wow, I can't get a regular mail, but I got all these mailers from these candidates.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yep. So that's another part of it, and of course on social media and all. So there are a number of ways the candidates are working to reach you, but one of the ways that I want to suggest is not that the candidates reach you, but that you reach the candidate.
Right.
You reach the candidate. So they want to be out and about. Yes, they have to be in their offices or be meeting this one and that one to raise money and make special calls and special meetings. But a lot of their time, a lot of their responsibility as a candidate is to get out and to talk with people where they are and hear what's on their mind. And yes, that might mean listening to somebody with a little louder voice than you had anticipated for your Monday morning. But that's all a part of the of the game that is politics, and it's so important. So the Urban League of Louisiana has been working with a number of partners over the last few weeks, and they had that assessor debate that I mentioned on Friday night. Their final debate, the Urban League's final debate in the series, By the People series, is Tuesday. So that's going to be Tuesday at Xavier University. So if you've missed some of the other ones, take a chance, put it on your calendar, make a note, make plans to get out there and see mayoral candidates in person. So this is your opportunity to see who wants to be your mayor, our mayor, and to see them in person and to watch them, listen to their answers, see how they respond to questions, see how they work the crowd. People have different ways of working the crowd, and that should give you an indication of their engagement with people. as well. This mayoral forum will include a number of the mayoral candidates. So that was a decision on the part of the Urban League to include some of everybody, and I believe they invited every mayoral candidate.
Oh, wow.
But so it'll be a big field,
Right.
and so that too will give you a different look at mayoral candidates, because certainly there are, I'll say, the big three, with State Senator Royce Duplessis, City Council Member District E, Oliver Thomas, and City Council Vice President at Large Member Helena Moreno. But there are other people running, and maybe you feel like another candidate is more in line with your views and what you would like to see done with the city. Well, this is an opportunity to see the major candidates, the most prominent candidates, as well as what sometimes are called minor candidates. But those quote unquote minor candidates sometimes are polling at 1% and 2%.
Right.
So if you get one candidate at 1%, another candidate at 2%, two more candidates at 1%,
Right.
another candidate at 2%, all of a sudden you've got maybe a 10% percentage of the people's vote that impacts who can win. And in other cases, it might be that one of the quote unquote minor candidates, for whatever reason, the vote splits in a different way, and that candidate actually gets into the runoff. What if that were to happen? Then that would change things quite a bit.
I remember the perfect storm when Ray Nagin ran.
Yes.
He was polling at
Great example.
3%. He was in the business council. I think they put him up there to run. He was at 3%. And something happened that I don't remember the exact circumstances. 'Cause I know Chief Pennington was one of the people that was running. It was the front runner for a long time. But something happened where he just elevated his profile, and next thing you know, it was him and Chief Pennington in the runoff, and he eventually won. So anything could happen. Anything could happen.
And people had assumed for some time that it was Pennington's race to lose.
And when you think about it, you look at it from the perspective, those debates are things that propelled him, because he showed an ability from a business standpoint. He had a business acumen that the people were looking for. They were tired of political people, because I don't know the actual circumstances that caused this type of thinking, because it was so long ago, but it was a situation where, he did extremely well during the debates, and I think he was an accountant, so he was talking about budgetary things, and he was using the jargon and the parlance that business people understood, and so it was one of those situations where he was propelled, so nobody's out.
Right, absolutely. So again, the Urban League debate is on Tuesday, and that's going to be Tuesday night at Xavier University, 7 p.m. We'll talk about it some more. Make sure you're aware of that. And there's some others coming up that you should be aware of. This is WBLK 1230 AM, and this is your community station. The talk line is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. And we're going to be going to the break in a moment, and we're going to hear from Lakeisha Gray Sewell, the founder of Girls Like Me Project, Inc., about why it's so important to focus on Black girls in particular. And coming up a little later, we're going to hear from one of my colleagues at the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, Blake Patterson. Well, last week, we heard about a campaign poll, and Dr. Silas Lee was good enough to spend some time with us walking through it. Well, there's some things that maybe Dr. Lee didn't talk about.
All right,
Mr. Patterson going to give us the scoop.
Deep
All right,
dive.
so y'all pay attention. Stay tuned. WBLK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Good Friday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. This morning, the IT department is working to figure out what caused a ransomware attack at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. Officials with the Sheriff's Office says more than a dozen computers connected to the OPSO system were compromised, but they say the jail's computer system has not been impacted. Happening today, the Governmental Affairs Committee is set to discuss a decision by the Director of Housing and Urban Development to suspend the mayor's ability to get funds from the agency. Secretary Scott Turner posted on social media saying the decision comes after the indictment of Mayor LaToya Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy. The city responded saying the administration will continue conducting productive business with HUD and will ensure that the momentum is sustained through the work of the Chief Administrative Officer and multiple city departments. Today's meeting is scheduled for noon at City Council chambers. New resources are opening up for the dozens of people displaced in a New Orleans East apartment complex fire. The city says the Gentilly Ridge Fire Relief Fund has been set up for those families. It's a partnership between the city and United Way. Joe Brown Rec Center will be open for displaced residents as long as needed. And finally, y'all, Week 1 of the NFL season is here. The Saints are taking on the Arizona Cardinals in the Dome this Sunday. Spencer Rattler is QB1 and is hoping to lead the team to victory. Kickoff, by the way, is for Sunday in the Dome at noon. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day and a phenomenal weekend.
Singer and producer will.i.am is launching what he thinks could be the next generation of radio, and he's using AI to do it. It's called Radio FYI. He talked to Bloomberg about the inspiration behind the project.
People still listen to radio, and radio hasn't been innovated since satellite radio. And so now with our architecture, we're able to allow the listener to engage with the presentation. It's no longer a one-way street or sometimes half a street when you're able to call into a station. This radio architecture allows for 1 to millions of conversations at the same time during the same segment.
will.i.am also says his AI-powered plan will be totally different from streaming platforms like Spotify, even though many of them now have radio station-style features. Radio FYI will be designed to offer listeners a sense of community, something he thinks there's still a need for. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
Lowe's knows you've got a job to do, and we help get it done. With the MyLowe's Pro Rewards program, eligible members save more with volume discounts on qualifying orders through a quote of $2,000 or more. Join for free today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Offer can't be combined with any other discount, contract, and/or special pricing. Exclusions, more terms, and restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
With Fidelity Wealth Management, a dedicated advisor gets to know you and your goals to build a comprehensive plan to help grow and protect your wealth. Backed by a team of specialists, they'll analyze all your accounts, even the ones they don't manage, to keep an eye on taxes and provide proactive portfolio insights that can help you unlock your wealth's full potential. Learn more at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Missed a show? Want to hear that guest everyone's talking about? WBOK is now streaming on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search WBOK Media, hit download, share with a friend, and don't forget to rate your favorite shows 5 stars. Because when our voices are heard, our impact grows.
A message from the community scientist. Do you live or work in St. James, St. John, St. Charles, Ascension, Calcasieu, Baton Rouge, or St. Bernard Parish? You may be exposed to harmful chemicals like phthalates, BPA, and flame retardants found in everyday products but linked to serious health risks. That's why the Community Scientist, a program of Rise St. James, brings you clear, science-based facts that protect your health and our environment. Stay informed, stay empowered. Visit risestjames.org today.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 12:30 a.m. on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM. Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Good morning, New Orleans, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show on WBOK, 1230 a.m. The talk line is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. I'm Will Sutton, and with me is
Chief Eddie Compass.
All
and
right.
I'm here to hear you.
All right, so we're having a good morning here on the Good Morning Show at WBOK on the beautiful South Campus of Xavier University of Louisiana. And with us in a moment, we're going to hear from Lakeisha Gray Sewell. She is the founder of Girls Like Me Project, Inc. And she's going to talk with us about Black girls. And we're going to find out who Lakeisha Gray Sewell is. We're going to find out what her thoughts are about Black girl magic, about the beautifulness of young Black women and Black girls, missing girls, some of everything Black girls. And welcome to the show, Lakeisha.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. You know, I just left New Orleans last week. I was there celebrating my 50th birthday.
Hey!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Lakeisha. Happy birthday to you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Yes.
When were you here?
I was there from August 28th until September 2nd.
Oh,
Okay.
a good little stretch. So how many times have you been to New Orleans before?
And that's exactly why I thought I was coming on, because we actually, my organization, we took our girls there for Essence Fest in 2022.
Okay.
And we did a documentary about it because we had visitors from the Masking Queens from Black Osceola and Queen Afetua and Queen Tierra, who came by our Airbnb and gave the girls a profound lesson on, first of all, masking Indians, but then secondly, just the culture and the heritage, our connection to Africa through New Orleans and through masking, and just reminding our girls of the spirit and the power in Black girlhood. And so we created a documentary from that.
Wonderful. Had any of them been to New Orleans before?
They had not been to New Orleans before.
Wow.
None
I'm
of
sure
them.
that I sure hope they had a wonderful experience.
They did, and neither did they ever know about Black masking Indians.
Right.
Yeah.
Introducing them to another part of the culture. How many young ladies did you have?
We had 10 girls that we took there.
That's a big group. Yeah. That's a big group. So, oh, that's wonderful. So what inspired you to start Girls Like Me Project, Inc.? And why that name?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the mission is around media literacy and storytelling, helping Black girls understand the power of media literacy, and helping them to understand the who, the what, and the why media messages are directed toward them, the power that negative stereotypes have, not only on their sense of self-worth, but how public perception is shaped through media stereotypes, and then how policy is used, right, with the help of media stereotypes. And so giving them back that power. I started this organization because when my son was in fourth grade, around this time, there was this new phenomenon called reality TV. And at the time you had Bad Girls Club, My Sweet 16, teenage pregnancy, and Real Housewives, and this and that, right? And you could see that the girls were emulating a lot of the mean girl behavior that was portrayed on these shows. Not only were they emulating this mean girl behavior, they were also for fourth graders, that's 9 years old. Mm-hmm. They were very, very aggressive physically, sexually, towards boys in a way that you just wouldn't expect at that age. And so myself and another parent, we got together and we began volunteering at the school. We called them lady lunches. And we just used that to kind of reshape the way that they thought of themselves. And we used books, we used media. And my background is in media, radio and television, and writing. And so I knew that media's power. As Ida B. Wells said, there's no educator to compare with the press. Or the full quote is, people must know before they can act, and there's no educator to compare with the press. And so I knew I had to use media to kind of correct this behavior that we were seeing. I called it Girls Like Me because I was that girl, right? I was that girl who often had disciplinary problems. I was that girl who knew better and could do better, but often chose another route. I was that girl who wanted to be seen, wanted to be respected and cared for. And so this was my way of, one, making sure that this generation of girls knew what I didn't know, and then secondly, to ensure that that I gave back and did my responsible thing for whatever karma I had put into the universe, making sure that I did the right thing by giving back and pouring back. Well,
Lakeisha, I'm a little bit older than you. I turned a big 70 in June.
Oh, yeah.
And if I'm incorrect, tell me. But I hear you that you were that girl, but I'm guessing you were not that girl in 3rd and 4th grade.
I was, well, you know what? Not to that extent. The things that I was that girl in 3rd and 4th grade where it was called back talk, right? That was the extent of what. But it definitely was not the hypersexuality. It definitely wasn't getting other girls to jump other girls, or it definitely was not that. It's taken a turn. And I'll tell you, my son is now 27. So those 9-year-old girls that I'm talking about, even that behavior is tame compared to what we're seeing now. It just seems as if we go further and further backwards because of, again, the power of media. And unfortunately, more than not, the media is used as a tool for destruction rather than a tool for healing. And so that's our work, is to make sure that we give the power back to those who create the stories, those who create and do the representation. And again, that is why we thought it was so important to bring our girls to New Orleans in 2022 for the Essence Festival, and to take in the whole culture of the city, because, representation, Essence is the epitome of Black womanhood and Black representation, media representation. And so we wanted them to be able to see women in that light. We wanted them to be able to see women from all parts of media, the storytellers, the actors, the producers, even those who are often in the background, the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the camera women, the vendors. We wanted them to see that power so that they could understand, this is not just a Chicago thing, south side of Chicago, west side of Chicago thing. This is not even just a New Orleans thing, right? This is the power that you have when you tell your own story, changes the vibration of how Black women move amongst each other around the world, but also how Black girls are seen outside of themselves around the world.
Yeah, how you doing? This is Chief Compass. You been okay?
Listen, I'm telling you, I'm still feeling the noble side. I'm feeling good.
All right. Well, when you look at your program, the stereotypical picture that they try to paint our young Black women are, and they sensationalize a lot of the negativity. What are you guys doing as it relates to from an advertising standpoint, or from, like you said, the documentary? Where is it shown? It's shown in the schools. What is the methodology to basically erase those stereotypical views of young Black women?
So we had a huge screening for the documentary. We're still open to entering that into festivals and showing it, but it is free and accessible on YouTube. Our methodology includes exposure, engagement. So we take girls. We have a workshop We make sure that our girls understand herstory. So first and foremost, before you can tell a story, you need to know who and whose you are. So we begin by giving our girls herstory lessons of ancestors and those who came before them and sacrificed. We do media training. So we have talk shows and podcasts where girls are actually the editors, the producers, the hosts of those shows. We also do healing circles. So our girls are getting mental wellness, free therapy through our partner, Reclaiming Minds Wellness and Therapy. We also do mother-daughter healing circles. And then we work in school partnerships as well. And the school partnerships are not just for our girls to attend those trainings and our workshops and our sister circles, but we also work with our educators and administrators, because oftentimes, although our role is to protect girls and advocate for girls, oftentimes internalized implicit bias is used even in our own schools and by our own people. The negative stereotypes, the calling of black girls fast, not allowing girls to express themselves, wanting every girl to confine themselves and to conform and assimilate. And so we work in training, professional development for the training and educators as well, of how to really create a restorative and affirming space for black girls in black spaces in black schools, in any school or space that they occupy.
Okay, well, that's great. That's amazing. I am a journalist. I'm a columnist at the TimesPicayune.com, and I've been doing media for 50 years at least. So I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're doing. It's so important, and I think all of us can benefit from some media introduction and media literacy at younger ages, not necessarily with the idea of going into media, but to understand media. And there are certain aspects of it that you don't know unless you've actually spent time to be in it and around it and understand it better. So I'm glad that that's a part of your program. We've got a caller, Byron.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mr. Sutton. How you doing, Mr. Compass?
How you doing, sir? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. First, I'd like to say, if I can, that I commend Miss Sewell. My mother was a champion for developing young ladies. And so what I'd like to ask Miss Sewell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Good morning, Byron.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. What I'd like to ask you is some of the things that my mother had put on in my mind as she was transitioning from this realm. When I look at your picture, Miss Sewell, I see that you're a very beautiful black lady, right? Mm-hmm. And you remind me of my mother. Natural, intelligent. And so I'm defining these characteristics because my mother was saying on her way out that our nurture had been misguided by the media, and that, we were so far from our natural selves. I say we because she wasn't just talking about females, but we are talking about females today. So I'm jumping over to that. But she said all of us, males and females, are so far from our natural existence, right? That's something that can damper our resurgence to come back as a community. And so I wanted to ask you, what are your real thoughts regarding, and so at the same time, I have to say my mom used to dress up and wear costume jewelry and wigs to balls and whatnot, right? So I'm not addressing that. I'm not addressing the feminine aspect of that, of, dressing up or anything, right? But how would you define, or not define, but how would you assess where we are on a whole in our community with female nurture for young girls, with the state we're in, with so many women don't want to be their natural self? I know that was jumpy, but but I know you're intelligent. Did you?
Absolutely. I got the crux of it.
All right.
Thank you
thanks
for your
calling.
question. So years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I kind of went viral on the Steve Harvey show, and the conversation was around just what you said, natural hair and weaves and eyelashes and these things. And my stand then and now is that when we know who we are, we know whose we are. We have no desire to hide ourselves or to manipulate ourselves. I'm actually working on a film now about this connection between cosmetic surgery and the relationship of mothers and daughters. I think that the unfortunate thing, and I'm with you, I think we always need to do this caveat because people don't hear thoroughly. So I am not shunning or judging anyone for choosing to wear wigs, weaves, whatever it is your choice is. But I think the fundamental understanding and appreciation for who you are without that, the fundamental appreciation and edification of how we appear in our natural state, as long as you understand that value cannot be enhanced or taken away by anything outside of yourselves, I think then that is fine. But unfortunately, the money maker in media is the bottom line kind of thing versus being an educator as it should be. Media is used to sell other standards of beauty. And if I can keep you chasing another standard of beauty, I can keep you buying these products, which is the only way that my platform survives, right? If I sell an ad for this makeup company or this hairline company or this male balding spray, right? Like all of the things that we continue to see pushed towards us. But I think the most dangerous for men and women, Black people in general, is the proliferation of alcohol and drugs, right? Because those things keep us unbalanced in our mind, and that is how we become more susceptible and more vulnerable to messages that tell us that we are not enough.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that answer. There are a lot of layers to that one.
Oh,
of
very
course.
much so.
I don't care what family you're in. More likely than not, you see what you're talking about, at least in 2 or 3 different variations. And parents, grandparents, aunties have to deal with it in different ways because I think we want our young people to be themselves, but when they're that young, they're not sure who they are.
Right.
Exactly.
And we want to help them what they can be,
right,
and might consider to be. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing. So you've got a Day of the Girl coming up on October 11th. Can you tell us about that briefly and tell our listeners where they can find you?
Briefly, yes, I'll try briefly. So
Okay.
October 11th was designated as International Day of the Girl by the United Nations. And that day dealt with all of the things that impact girls in third world countries: sex trafficking, gender violence, hunger, access to clean water. And I looked around and I said, in Chicago, and also education. I looked in Chicago and 54 schools were closing. We had unclean water in Flint, and then found to have lead in water here in Chicago. Chicago being number 3 in the sex hub for sex trafficking around the world. And I thought to myself, in all of these conversations, while they're saying global, third world countries, this is happening in Chicago.
Right.
And so I wanted to ensure that our girls understood a global conversation about themselves and that they had an active participation in that conversation. And so 14 years ago, we started Day of the Girl here in Chicago. We're about to have our 14th one coming up on October 11th. It's Girlhood in Bloom is the theme for this year. And so we really want girls to understand advocacy, civic engagement, leadership and sisterhood, and really self-care. So there'll be conversations around leadership development. There'll be conversations around environmental justice and their role in that fight. There'll be conversations around just self-care and how to use nature and and nature for their own healing, for their own grooming and hygiene. People can get more information by going to Girls Like Me Project. Chicago Day of the Girl is a major tab there. And we love the support. We love for people to find out who we are. We love to partner with organizations, with universities, and we love to do more excursions. I was really blessed when I came just this past weekend. Queen Asetua made sure that I had tickets to the Katrina monologues.
Oh, nice!
All right.
Yeah, and I did the summit, the Katrina summit that the mayor put on, and I also did the protest rally, the rally in the 9th Ward on Friday morning. And so we want to bring girls to more things like that, not just to be purveyors of culture, but to really truly make a connection, because wherever a black girl is, a black girl is. I don't care what zip code you're from. We're all right now. We're all connected, and our only way forward, even under this regime that we're in now, our only way forward is together.
All right. Well, we might have been standing next to each other or within a few feet based on where you said you were. But maybe the next time we'll meet in person. You've been listening to Lakeisha Gray Sewell, the founder of Girls Like Me Project, Inc. And she's got a New Orleans connection now, so don't be surprised if we see some young sisters from Chicago and New Orleans again. So thank you so much, Ms. Gray Sewell, for joining us at the Good Morning Show on WBOK 1230 AM. The talk line, folks, is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. And after we take a break, we're going to be talking about news you want to know, should know, might want to know. And we got Blake Patterson coming up from the Times-Picayune-NOLA.com, going to tell us the real scoop on the poll that you heard about last week. WBOK 1230 AM. New Orleans, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Amazing feeling air today. Humidity is much lower. Partly cloudy skies with highs in the mid to upper 80s. It won't feel as oppressive today. It's breezy with most areas 10 to 15 miles per hour, but even more over water. Will stay mostly dry today. Lows fall to the 60s and 70s, and we'll see a slight uptick in humidity and a stray shower for Tuesday. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Every Friday at noon on WBOK.
What's the future for New Orleans? Will city services ever function efficiently? Our people need answers, not slogans. That's why the Nonpartisan City Services Coalition has asked the candidates for mayor how they plan to fix city government. Want to know what they said? Go to cityservicescoalition.com to see for yourself. It's time for action, not excuses. The next step is yours.
Paid for by the City Services Coalition.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Good morning, New Orleans, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show, or welcome to the Good Morning Show if you've been doing a few other things. It is 7:53 a.m., and if you got somewhere to be at 8 a.m., woo! I hope you're dressed and ready to go with your coffee, your tea, your Raw Generations drink, or whatever you got going, because you got just a few minutes to get there if you're going to punch in on time. If it's 8:15, then you got a little bit more time, but we'll see how things go. Upcoming in the next hour, we'll hear from Blake Patterson. He's a reporter with the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com. And last week we heard about a Resilience New Orleans poll and what New Orleanians said in that poll of 500 people, what they said that they wanted to see with infrastructure and resilience in the city of New Orleans, and also took a look at candidates running for office. We're going to be trying to get more information about these polls and see what the polls are showing and saying, and find out about the background of the polls. None of these folks have to come in, of course, but we're going to extend the invitation as a part of educating all of us about the candidates and the campaigns, and about the city and what's going on. So Blake Patterson will be coming up in the 8 o'clock hour to talk with us about that. Meanwhile, we had some pretty disturbing news over the weekend, and that is that the mother of the 12-year-old nonverbal boy whose body was found in a lagoon, mauled by a couple of alligators. His mother has now been charged with being involved in his death, and been charged with a count of second-degree cruelty to juveniles and negligent homicide. We want to talk about this a little bit more in the next hour, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it's very unfortunate news. When Chief Ann Kirkpatrick was here, she indicated that at that point they were 90% sure that the body was this boy's, and she indicated that there were some other things that they would do as a part of continuing the investigation, that the investigation was not ending at that time. And certainly did not want to see this news that has developed on Sunday, but we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about that in the next hour, Chief. But give us just a little summary overview of that in the next couple of minutes. We got about 2.5 minutes, and then we're going to go to break, but we're going to talk about it more in the next hour.
Well, when people look at an investigation of this magnitude, they wonder what takes so long. In a civil case, it's basically preponderance of evidence, which is like 51%. But in a case of this magnitude, and when you're talking about criminal penalties, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, a lot of people really don't understand what that is, but it's often conceptualized as evidence that is so compelling that the only logical conclusion is that the individual is guilty. And it's usually a 95% certainty. And so it takes a while to get that. So you can't have these investigations when you're looking at something this magnitude, something this high profile. So you have to turn every stone over. You have to look at all the facts. And when you present that to the DA, you have to look at it from the respect that this is going to a jury, and they have to have a burden of proof that is beyond a reasonable doubt, which is really difficult in the society in which we live in, because I always say there's always a contest that is better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man perish. Well, basically in this case, it's they're making sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. And that's why Chief Kirkpatrick couldn't really expound on it at that time, because basically they had just identified the individual with certainty. And so, the investigation was ongoing. And now that the investigators have done their due diligence. They've come to the point where they have enough information, enough data, and enough evidence to present it to the DA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the DA has to look at it and say, is that enough? Because, when I tell people about the process, they don't realize the complexity of it. They think that the police basically charge people.
Mm-hmm.
All we do is present the facts to the DA. They adjudicate the case through the criminal justice system, and so we are basically the individuals who present the facts, but the judges are the actual trier of facts, and they come up with the conclusion if it's a drudge trial or if it's a jury trial, which in this case it may be. They have to present the evidence to the jury, and they come to the conclusion whether guilt or innocence. So it's a very long process. It's very complex. So they want to make sure a case that's this high profile that proper diligences are in place. So that's one of the things that we want to inform the public. It's not that the police sometimes are dragging things out or not doing their job. It's basically they want to just make sure.
Right. And again, though there's been an arrest in this case yesterday, and we heard about it last night and more today, it doesn't mean it's the end of the investigation.
No.
There could be some other things that the police are looking at, and tips are always welcome if there's somebody who thinks they know a little piece of something that might be helpful.
As these investigations evolve, I've seen cases when it actually gone to trial, and during the trial, evidentiary evidence comes that wasn't in the beginning, in the early stages, and it changed the whole course of the case, of the trial. So, we always looking for the truth as law enforcement professionals. Like I always tell people, I'm not looking at individuals from a personal standpoint. I'm going where the evidence leads me. I worked in homicide, and those investigations are extremely complex. So when you look at this type of case, you want to make sure that all options are looked at and all the different evidence is dissected, because when you present that evidence, you have to make sure that it is done in a way, and then with the gathering of the evidence, there's certain constitutional rights in place that if you get evidence in the wrong way without having the proper protocols, it'll be thrown out. I've seen that in many cases. So, you just want to be very careful and very diligent when you're doing this.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're going to continue with the Good Morning Show for the next hour and a bit. And you're listening to WBOK 1230 AM. We had a great conversation with Lakeisha Gray Sewell. And up next is going to be an amazing conversation with Times-Picayune, NOLA.com reporter Blake Patterson. You heard a bit about the Resilience New Orleans poll last week from Dr. Silas Lee. And, of course, he's the one who was paid to do the poll and conducted the poll and gave us some good information.
Great information.
Good brother. But we're going to take a look at it from a little different vantage point and see what some additional research and reporting yielded via Mr. Blake Patterson right after the break. You're listening to WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
WBOK New Orleans, home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A new ICE detention center called Camp 57 has opened at Louisiana's Angola prison, once a slave plantation. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and other officials held a press conference at the prison last week.
We're going after gang members, human traffickers, drug dealers, and other violent, illegal aliens.
Officials say it will house over 400 undocumented immigrants convicted of violent crimes. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is reportedly weighing a Trump administration job that could end his re-election bid. He met with Trump advisor Steve Witkoff in Miami despite City Hall's initial denial. Adams says he's listening to offers. And boxing legends Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather Jr. will face off in a special exhibition match next spring. All of the details on location, rounds, and the broadcast is still to come. Mayweather promises it'll be legendary. Get VIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Join New Schools for New Orleans, All-State Sugar Bowl, and Entergy New Orleans in recognizing and celebrating the Teachers of the Year at our 4th annual New Orleans Excellence in Teaching Awards Gala. The gala will take place Saturday, November 1st at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. This year's gala will feature New Orleans legend DJ Jubilee. Don't miss out on this intimate celebration supporting our New Orleans public school teachers. Tickets can be purchased on our website, newschoolsforneworleans.org.
Good morning. Wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
This is the Good Morning Show, and the voice you hear is Will Sutton, and the voice you're about to hear is Chief Eddie Compass. Why are you here, Chief Eddie Compass?
I'm here to hear you.
All right. The talk line is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. This is your radio station, your community radio station. You're hearing our voices, but we would like to hear yours. 504-582-9422. I promised you that we would hear more about the campaign throughout the campaign, and you know that I'm talking about election day and the early voting and all of that every day. So don't get fed up. It's going to keep coming at you because it's so important that you get registered and that you vote. But another aspect of campaigns is often polling. And polling is, remember, it's a snapshot in time. It is something that usually someone has paid for. It is usually something that they want to get some information about, an issue, subject, goings on, candidates. So it's not only candidates, but the poll we talked about last week, the Resilience New Orleans poll, looked at infrastructure and other types of things that might come under the umbrella of resilience. But thankfully, we have Blake Patterson here, reporter from the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, and he's going to give us, I'll say, a different perspective on the poll and additional information, layers of information, so we can better understand what does this poll really say and maybe what it doesn't say. Good morning, Blake, and welcome to WBOK.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
All right. So first of all, we like to ask our guests to answer the question, who your mama in them?
And why you look so young? This young man looks like 12 years old. I was like, who is this kid?
So tell us a little bit about Blake, and then let's get to it.
Yeah, I'm from Houston originally, and been in Louisiana for 6 years now, working for the paper. Was originally up in Baton Rouge, covering politics up there, and been down here in New Orleans for the past 3 years. And just last week started on the New Orleans political beat, so right in the thick of it. So.
All right. Okay. Now, did you always think you were going to be a journalist?
No, that was my school newspaper, my college newspaper, is where I, sort of fell in love with journalism and the pursuit of facts and, finding the real story. So that's where I fell in love with it.
All right. So we had a poll last week. There have been a number of polls. As you well know, we don't hear about all the polls. they're opposed, they'd rather not release, or they're opposed that, or smaller polls, I'll call them, so they don't capture as many people. But what have you found with the Resilience New Orleans poll that our listeners might be particularly interested in?
Yeah, so this group, Resilience New Orleans, usually when we see a poll and it's we try and kind of figure out what perspective they're coming from here. So this group, Resilience New Orleans, they are primarily funded by Entergy New Orleans. So, the poll had a lot of good information about sort of the infrastructure, challenges that residents face and, what voters want to see addressed. But there was a really interesting section of the poll that really delved into the mayor's race. And it caused a little bit of controversy among the candidates. So it sort of it asked the voter or the respondents, who they'd support among the three major candidates. And then it had this section afterwards that gave these positive statements about two of those candidates. Asked the respondents, whether these were convincing reasons to support them. And then, did a follow-up question. Okay, does that change your mind about who you're voting for? Of the three candidates, there were positive statements about Royce Duplessis. There was state senator, right? Senator. Mm-hmm. There was positive statements about Council Vice President Helena Moreno. But the third major candidate, Councilmember Oliver Thomas, there was no similar positive statement. So
there wasn't. So there were questions for the respondents about Duplessis and Moreno.
Right.
But there was not a question that was about how people saw Thomas.
Right. It almost seemed like they were doing message testing here. And I mean, so, they ask, Helena Moreno has a track record of fighting crime and improving infrastructure. Do you find that convincing or not? And they did one for Duplessis. And so after this poll was released last week, Oliver Thomas's campaign sent out a press release, highlighting this fact and saying, basically I can say I'm not Entergy's candidate. If you
right.
Entergy's not supporting me. So,
okay.
And I should say, Entergy is the primary backer of the group that did this poll, but they told me that they had, no role in the poll. They didn't pick out the questions. So that was sort of their 2 cents to me.
So how does Resilience New Orleans describe themselves? Who is Resilience New Orleans?
Yeah, that's a good question. They describe themselves as sort of like an energy, policy. I'm trying to pull up sort of how exactly to describe themselves. They focus a lot on sort of improving infrastructure. Yeah, they describe themselves as an energy and environmental policy expert and ratepayer advocate. But this group has a pretty interesting history. It was started in 2023, which just a couple weeks before Entergy New Orleans started this big public campaign to try and build support for this $1 billion plan to improve the grid. So, and this group has really, they've appeared at a lot of public meetings describing themselves as advocates and, and then speaking in support of Entergy's plan. So there are a lot of sort of, questions about sort of their motivations. And in fact, when I got comments from the other candidates, Helena Moreno said, she always thought it looked questionable that this group advocates for Entergy initiatives and its main funder is Entergy. So there's always been some skepticism about their motivations.
So the poll that was released to the public, to media and to the public, didn't say Entergy or Entergy affiliated.
Yeah, the poll did not. Their website does acknowledge that they are, they get funding from Entergy New Orleans. Okay. So they're not hiding it.
Right. So do we know that Entergy is a big funder of Resilience New Orleans or a funder of Resilience New Orleans?
That's a good question. And back when they first started, their founder told the other news outlets that their only funder was Entergy New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Now now the executive director told me that it's primary funder, that they have other funders, but these are kind of a nonprofit. They don't have to report sort of their donations. So like who exactly gives them money.
Got it. Chief?
Well, when you send a subliminal message like that, saying two positive things about two candidates and nothing about the other candidate, what was the tangible gauge that they used to measure those positive things? Was it just something that was happenstance? Like, we heard that they were like crime fighting. What was the tangible gauge to measure that statement? Because you can't just say things capriciously, arbitrarily, or vicariously. There has to be some type of definitive information to say that this is the stance that this individual took on crime. So what was that?
Yeah, they're pretty broad statements. I mean, one of them is, Royce Duplessis led the fight to ensure home insurance discounts for property owners who added 4 to 5 roofs to their properties. And so they read like a statement like that, and then how do you decide, is that very convincing reason to support them? Somewhat convincing, not very convincing. They're all pretty broad statements. I mean, in each one of these, you can go in and
then when you talk about crime, I mean, like I said, you look at, like you said, nothing about Oliver Thomas, but he has been involved in many crime fighting initiatives and supporting police. So, why would they not say something positive about what he has done in the past? Because he has done some things that is public knowledge.
All right. So what was the, you just read the question related to Duplessis. What was the question for Helena Moreno to the respondents?
Yeah, one of them, there are 2 each for them, but another one was Helena Moreno has a track record of fighting crime and improving infrastructure and quality of life issues in the city. So again, you could say that anyone could probably claim that,
Right.
It's a pretty broad statement.
Very broad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if you recall, what was the number of people that they polled? How reliable should we consider this poll?
Yeah, I mean, I think of course, Silas Lee is a well-respected pollster. I don't think there's any reason to question sort of his work. There was 520 New Orleans voters, what they described as chronic voters, so people that are likely to vote. And it was done over telephone, so telephone interview, which my understanding is a pretty reliable. I mean, that's one of the better ways to poll people.
Right.
So, and then they have a sort of a margin of error in there. And, so I think a lot of the information is good. It's some of the stuff about, it just seemed a little strange that, they would, leave OT out of that section.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, with the 520 people, did it transcend race, socioeconomic? What was it like? They made between this much amount and this amount. So was that stated in the poll?
Yeah. So the under the methodology, they say that it's representative of the social and economic demographics of New Orleans. So
it's the average, basically representing the entire city. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got to call up Papa Baptiste. Good morning. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Comment ça va? Bonjour.
Oh, bonjour. You're much better at that than I am, but
he's
good to hear your
bilingual.
voice.
He's bilingual.
Good to hear your voice. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. By the grace of God, peace and blessings to everybody at the station, Mr. Henry, everybody, all of the wonderful people that pushes WBOK, Wendell Pierce. I love what you guys have done. But I would like to say, how do you guys get the young people? How do you reach? They got a whole bunch of young kids just turned 18. Some of them are still in high school. Some of them are 18 and 19 and still in high school. But they hadn't been targeted to try and get their vote. You get the chronic voters like myself, and I've always taught my kids. I brought my kids from 5, 6 years old into the voting booth with me to teach them how important it is to vote. So how do y'all reach the younger kids, the younger voters, explain to them how important it is to get out and vote and how important they are? Because Patron, usually try and make them feel that they're not worth nothing except Angola, before Milling His Boys Home, Before that, West Bank. You're not worth nothing, so your vote is not worth nothing. So how do you make somebody that's been targeted to make them feel like they're nothing, to make them know how powerful their vote is and how strong it makes them feel as a voter? You know, we need that. We need to reach out to these young kids, make them feel that they are important. Last but not least, I took 7 kids, and I'm harping on it because I took 7 kids out of some of the worst conditions in life that you could force upon the kid, including losing their parents right in front of them and not having the thing for life, you know, that they want to do anything for life anymore after losing their parents. I brought them to the White House, and they performed for Michelle Obama, and they outsung everybody, all the young kids, the choirs, the 20 and 30 choirs, and everything else. And there was only 9 that had started, but 7 was able to make the trip, and they became Michelle's special guest to close out the last event that she did for children. I got the news from Trombone Shorty and Alfred Woodard that Michelle wanted to see us at the White House, and off we went. And last but not least, y'all, I'm going to be in New York this weekend for Fashion Week. They've designed a couple of jackets for the Batiste family from this French African designer from Africa. It's going to be held at the Lightbox. Y'all can look it up in New York this Friday and Saturday for David Batiste and Damon Batiste. And when they say the Batiste family, that's my family. Everybody collects my family. John Batiste, the superstar, that's my brother Michael's son.
Right.
You know,
right. Yep.
And so everybody, you know, when you make it, you know, everybody want to be a part of you, you know. But prior to that, it was hush hush, you know. But then I got 100 phone calls thanking me that, hey, David, look at your son, because John plays all the same instruments I play, the little melodica, wind instrument, the keyboards. You know, everything that Uncle David plays, you know, I never taught him nothing. He used to just watch me, you know, and so he sold out in Vegas night before last.
Yeah.
I got a call, and guess what? Some other things is going down, Will, that I'll be informing you on, man. It's bigger than spectacular coming from our family.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow, look.
It's coming to reach back and help the city, man. And that's right. Nobody talked to us about Hurricane Katrina when we came back and opened up a school, the Baptiste Cultural Arts School. That's where those kids came from to go to the White House. So that's what Damon did after Hurricane Katrina and his NOSA and his nonprofit, man. We opened up a whole pre-K school from pre-K to 8th grade and went to the White House with an award from
I worked
President Obama.
at that school with you, sir. Do you remember that? When I was with the Recovery School District, we worked at that school with you, and you guys did a great job.
We'll tell a story. Let them know what we did after Hurricane Katrina, bro. You know how the game is. They're going to put Sensei, he's going to put whoever they want up at the top.
Well, I understand what this segment is about, the polls. Now, when we get you on the show, we can talk about it because I can sing your praises. Because y'all did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I think we can be in touch and get back to this. It sounds like some amazing and wonderful stuff, Papa Batiste.
It was.
So, but I'm going to answer your question about the youth vote. I think we have to start in elementary school personally, because you know people are often complaining that we don't teach civics anymore. Well, I don't think civics was really taught in 3rd or 4th grade, but there are teachers who care enough about government and the democracy and the republic to know the difference between the republic and the democracy and the importance of voting, and they work it into their coursework at a younger age, that they can understand these things at a younger age. And if you keep building that into them, and I'm not saying I'm a model parent, I am not, but if you take your son or your daughter to the voting booth, if you explain to them why we're going to a debate or a forum on a Friday night, if you say, I want you to just read these 3 paragraphs, well, it's 47 paragraphs, but I just want you to read these 3 and then let's talk about it. Those are some of the kinds of things where you build governance, democracy, literacy, and a desire for young people to vote. And we had a lot of young people turn out in the last presidential campaign. And, it's tough when you are voting for your first, second, or third time and your candidate loses. It's wonderful when you vote for your first, second, or third time and your candidate wins, but that's a part of the process, and we have to help our young people understand that it's not always that you win, but the importance is the engagement and the participation. So you raise a good point, and we will keep tapping into that. But polls like what Blake is talking about, they don't always reach youth at that point. But I think it's important to do things like what we're doing and talk about these polls and talk about candidate forums and debates. And yes, give them something to read and talk to them about it at their level.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, one of the things I think has happened with social media, you've taken a lot of the human element out. I remember when we were young, I was in Tips with Charbonnet. Then you had Don Hubbard with Soul. Then you had Sidney Bartholomew and Lambert Bazier, I think, with Coop. These people would embrace us as little kids. They'd have us putting out pamphlets, putting up signs, but also educating us on candidates and telling us how important it is to vote. And I mean, I remember Don Hubbard drilling in my head as a child. He said, boy, people died for this right. He said, you understand what I'm telling you? I said, yes, sir. And then you got Big Duck. I mean, Big Duck used to have all the young people telling us stories about the civil rights when he was beaten for these things. So it was ingrained in us. That's why I guess I'm so passionate about my community and about voting, because I grew up with the giants. I mean, the giants of this city that was putting and instilling into us, Mr. Batista. And unfortunately, with social media, we don't have that. Then unfortunately, like people like Big Duck and Mr. Hubbard and stuff, they're older men, and Louis Charbonnet, they're older, and Sidney Bartholomew and Lambert Bazier.
We want to get an influencer to Fowler Duck.
Right, yeah.
So he can drop his wisdom.
Exactly.
Look, we got a caller. Ms. Jones, are you on the line? Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Okay, and good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
It's obvious it's not going to be taught in school, civics and U.S. history, all that we had. With that being said, why not convert some of the social clubs into civics clubs, neighborhood clubs, dealing with civics and voters registration?
Yeah, that's a good idea. There are some of our organizations that do some of that. For instance, yes, of course, I'm a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, but my other Greek brothers in Kappa Alpha Psi have a youth program that is national, and that type of thing is a part of what they do to introduce young people to registration, to voting, to engage them in government, especially when some of the Kappa brothers are that's part of what they do as a living. So that's just one example, but there are others. But that's certainly a really good idea. And,
that is great.
Yeah, and it can be duplicated. It does not have to be
all
one.
Of the organizations.
Right.
And whenever there are gatherings, like a second lining, talk about it.
Right.
Encourage them to go. They could go online. They could do it better than I can, because I don't care a whole lot for technology, but have to deal with it.
Yep.
They could do it that way.
Yeah.
And telling the history, I mean, sometimes it's just going one ear and out the other. And not just the youth, but people who are older, well, they're going to do what they want to do anyhow, but not without my say-so. When I go and mark off something in a voting booth, no, it may not be what I want as outcome, but I will vote. And for people who think, oh, my religion don't allow me to, please.
Yeah.
We live in here. We in here. We got to deal with it until the second coming, if anybody believes it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. We got a couple more callers. We've got Cedric. Are you on the line?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's up, young man?
Hi, Dad. Good morning. I want to ask in reference to the poll stuff. Are there any polls that are being done in reference Well, first of all, to people, a lot of times these polls don't come into our community. So please, y'all, don't let the polls deter you from voting. My concern is this. Is there a poll that's going to talk about this how black people don't like the racist email in one of these campaigns, or that we don't like the skit that we know is talking about? It looks like it's depicting Mr. Troy Henry and Councilman Oliver Thomas. Can y'all please address that? Because it seems like one candidate has a lock on the media except for WBOK. I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, thank you, Cedric. Excellent point. The email that you're talking about was covered by Times-Picayune, NOLA.com reporter James Finn in one of the stories. So it may be that, one of the things that happens with stories is if you have enough space and enough time, you can cover 2 or 3 things, but it may not be the headline. And so there are evaluations that are made about what should be the headline, what even goes in the story, because I'll use that story in particular as an example. I guarantee, without having talked with Finn, that there's at least 3 or 4 other things he could have put in that story. I guarantee you. But decision has to be made by the reporter or the reporter and the editor, and that's not included. So if you do want to read about that email situation, if you go to NOLA.com and look up James Finn, you will see a story that includes reporting about that particular piece. But when it comes to the Resilience New Orleans poll, it didn't cover anything along those lines that I saw. Is that right, Blake?
Yeah, this poll was, primarily about sort of your issues with street flooding, drainage, and the electricity grid, electric grid. So infrastructure primarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Cedric, we appreciate your calling, your listening, and your support. And we're going to do our part this campaign season to keep people informed and give you some different perspectives and viewpoints as well. We've got another caller, Ms. Dupree.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hey, Ms. Dupree.
How are you all this morning?
Is this our Kimba?
Of course it is.
Okay. I knew that voice.
I've been listening to the conversation, and I want us to be mindful of when we talk about the younger generation, more ways to include them versus singling out the ways that they communicate. Social media is very impactful, hence why you get a lot of the viral things, to even have conversations about a lot of things. Social media has made information so accessible. Good information, misinformation, disinformation, but also good information. But you have to be a seeker of deciphering the difference between what's the good information online and not. Also, with regard to the polls, Shedrick brought up a good question about whether or not there should be a poll regarding the email, the racist email that was sent out. Oh, it was a sponsored email by somebody who can be categorized as a racist or race baiter. There's a good conversation to have around how media is pushing certain messages. I have the benefit of being at community events. I see who comes. I see which events certain candidates choose to go to, and the idea that it looks like one candidate is really invested into particularly the Black community. They get planted in certain spaces, and you have to be able to decipher that. But with regard to young people voting, yes, there is a limited or a lower amount of human interaction. But if you can't beat them, one, join them, and then also once you join them, bring them into your ways as well. So like this can be a transfer of information both up and down, and it's important to do that, to get information from our young people and also pass along historical information to our young people to make sure that they are informed, because there's a gap of young people who are not aware of the historical information, because generations of parents aren't linked like they used to be. You know, I have a relationship up to my great grandparents. I have that relationship. We don't really have those intergenerational relationships like that anymore. So we have to find ways to include them in on the conversation, and get to the spaces where they are, so that they can get the good information and the dis and misinformation that is purposely and paid for, to be honest, to be on the platforms where they use and access information, that they have something to combat with their investor in. And I'll see y'all in a little bit.
Well, wait. I got a question for you.
Yes.
So for those who, plenty of people know, but for those who don't know, one of your various titles and hats that you wear is educator.
Yes.
So what's your thinking about Ms. Jones's comment about getting civics or government engagement and education into the schools at different points? Maybe we don't call it civics, but from your perspective as somebody who's been in the classroom, this education is so important to you. What do you think we are going right that maybe people don't know enough about, and maybe where can we do better?
So in education, I really want to frame my words, but I'm just going to say it like I usually say it. We have people who are bought and paid to be quiet on certain pieces, and we have people who are afraid of their jobs, so they teach what has been told to them to teach. There is specific language that on how you're supposed to present information, and if you step outside of that and you have a kid who wants to complain or is getting a poor grade in your class, and they say, well, they're teaching us biased information, blah, 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 that teacher's job is at risk. What we can do to combat that as a community in all of our places of worship, that cannot be that can be interfered with. I remember Cynthia Calise, who was my Sunday school teacher at Bethany United Methodist Church. She taught all the young adult classes. Because she was an attorney, she used to give us information along with the information from the Bible. She also worked in how law works, because she needed us to understand how we needed to govern ourselves in public, what we needed to understand as it came time for you to approach voting, not tell us how you needed to vote, because that I don't think is okay. But she gave us information for us to engage with each other as teenagers. I mean, as early as 13 or 14. We were having discussions about that. And in our in our own houses, we have to have those conversations. We have to be responsible for training up the children that we are directly responsible for as a community, as aunties, as uncles. And we can't have the complacent thing, well, they're not going to listen anyway. No, if you want something to be done and you want something to be carried forward, you can't pick up the complacent pieces, because then also you give yourself some responsibility for it not mattering enough until it does.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for calling in. We'll see you in a bit, huh?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
I'll see y'all later on.
All
right.
Have a good day. All right. Well, we're with Blake Patterson from TimesPicayune.com. We've been talking about the Resilience New Orleans poll. And obviously with polls, whoever pays for it determines what the poll will include. How many respondents? The more respondents, the more it costs. The more days, as opposed to 1 day, the more it costs. So they have to look at you want to look at the methodology to figure out whether our community is being represented in any of these polls. So my suggestion is, when you see the headline, if you just read a part of the story, then try to read some of the story to see if there's info about the methodology. And then more times than not, if they've released it publicly, it's online somewhere.
Right.
And you can find it and you can dig in and take a look at it. We really appreciate your time today, Blake, for coming in, and especially for coming in. We like it when people come in.
It's good to be
read
here.
the body language and
energy.
engage in a different kind of energy of conversation. But for those listeners who want to read more of your work and learn more about this poll and your story about this, how can they contact you, and what kinds of things are you interested in as you start this new assignment?
Yeah, I'm interested. So I'll be covering New Orleans politics and government. So I want to hear from anyone regarding, if you have stories about how the city services are working for you or not working for you, or really any story you think deserves more coverage or scrutiny, feel free to reach out. I am, my email is bpatterson, that's Patterson with 1 T, @theadvocate.com. And then you can text me or call me too at 281-740-4436. Always looking to hear from our readers and hear from the public. And our reporting is just as good as what we're hearing on the ground. So let us know if there's things that deserve more coverage.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Blake. Appreciate it. Always good to get another perspective, a different angle, a different viewpoint on polls and campaigning. So we've got less than a month until early voting starts on September 27th, and a bit over a month until Election Day on October 11th. You're listening to WBOK 1230 AM. There's still time to hear from you. The talk line is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk a bit more about the Vasquez kid and what's developed with that. You're listening to WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Friday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. This morning, the IT department is working to figure out what caused a ransomware attack at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. Officials with the Sheriff's Office says more than a dozen computers connected to the OPSO system were compromised, but they say the jail's computer system has not been impacted. Happening today, the Governmental Affairs Committee is set to discuss a decision by the Director of Housing and Urban Development to suspend the mayor's ability to get funds from the agency. Secretary Scott Turner posted on social media saying the decision comes after the indictment of Mayor LaToya Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy. The city responded saying the administration will continue conducting productive business with HUD and will ensure that the momentum is sustained through the work of the Chief Administrative Officer and multiple city departments. Today's meeting is scheduled for noon at City Council chambers. New resources are opening up for the dozens of people displaced in a New Orleans East apartment complex fire. The city says the Gentilly Ridge Fire Relief Fund has been set up for those families. It's a partnership between the city and United Way. Joe Brown Rec Center will be open for displaced residents as long as needed. And finally, y'all, Week 1 of the NFL season is here. The Saints are taking on the Arizona Cardinals in the Dome this Sunday. Spencer Rattler is QB1 and is hoping to lead the team to victory. Kickoff, by the way, is for Sunday in the Dome at noon. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK.
Tired
Have
of
a
the
great
impersonal,
day.
one-size-fit-all style
weekend.
of banking? You deserve a bank that delivers exceptional service and personalized attention to your needs. That's the Home Bank Standard. Since 1908, Home Bank has been a trusted financial partner for businesses and families because we go the extra mile to help you reach your goals. See for yourself why Home Bank is good for business, good for life. Stop by any New Orleans area location or find out more at home24bank.com. Home Bank, member FDIC.
What's the future for New Orleans? Will city services ever function efficiently? Our people need answers, not slogans. That's why the Nonpartisan City Services Coalition has asked the candidates for mayor how they plan to fix city government. Want to know what they said? Go to cityservicescoalition.com to see for yourself. It's time for action, not excuses. The next step is yours.
Paid for by the City Services Coalition.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Show on WBOK 1230 AM. The talk line is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. That was a good conversation about the Resilience New Orleans poll and what's other elements of it, the energy connection or not with the poll. And we're going to keep doing that kind of thing as long as we can get people in here to who are connected to the polls and people who are reporting on the polls and conducting the polls as we get closer. All polls are not public, so we won't have access to those for going on the airwave. But, meanwhile, we want to get back to this case of the 12-year-old nonverbal boy whose body was found, and now his mother has been charged. That happened yesterday, and that was announced by
Assistant Chief of Police Hans Gauthier. He's very, very adroit at investigations. He's matriculated through the department, and he's really, really on the ball with these type of things. So he did a press conference.
Yeah. So I think we have audio of Chief Hans at the press conference yesterday.
Good evening. Today, the New Orleans Police Department arrested Hilda Vasquez, the mother of 12-year-old Brian Vasquez, in connection with his investigation into his death. Ms. Vasquez was taken into custody today, Sunday, September 7th, and has been charged with second-degree cruelty to a juvenile and negligent homicide. Keep in mind, this still is an active and sensitive investigation. Our detectives will continue to pursue every fact and every aspect and to any investigative leads. Out of respect for the ongoing process, a lot of the details cannot be released. However, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. We extend our condolences not only to the community, but to Brian's family in more ways than one. We also want to thank our local, state, and federal partners who all helped in this investigation, as well as the Cajun Navy, who was out there for several days. This was an emotional and really traumatic case, not just for the community, the family, but also our own officers and every officer that was out there. It was not an easy time for anyone, and again, we wish the outcome would have been different, but it's not the case. But we have to pursue and seek justice for Brian. With that said, we'll try to answer any question we can.
Could you give us a little more detail on that cruelty to juvenile?
So, what do you think of that announcement that he made yesterday afternoon?
I think that announcement was a result of a culmination of looking at the totality of circumstances surrounding the case. When you look at the history of the mother as it relates to the child, from 2014, there were many inconsistencies in her statement at that time when the child was injured, and it's very analogous to what's going on now as it relates to the neglect aspect. So when you look at the totality of circumstance from what happened in 2014 to what's happening now, the actual circumstances of a history with the child, they feel as though as a police department that they have enough probable cause and reasonable suspicion to put a case together and send it to the DA for acceptance for those charges.
Yep. And let's listen to another part. This is where reporters, a couple of reporters were asking questions, and another chief is weighing in.
Obviously, the district attorney's office is going to review all the facts surrounding this case and make a charging decision. However, when our detectives looked at this case, the second-degree cruelty to juvenile charge also has a component that reads that negligence that causes severe injury. So obviously, as Chief Gantier said, there has been a pattern of both negligence and abuse over Brian's 12 years. And so we believe that we can prove that that pattern of negligence and abuse led to a severe injury or undue pain and suffering on his part.
Laura?
Now that was Chief Nick Gernon. Chief Nick Gernon is the chief of detectives. It's his responsibility to be the first-hand supervisor over the individuals that's actually conducting the investigation. And the information he gave was very similar to what I said previous to him speaking. When you look at a case of this magnitude, you have to make sure all your ducks are in a row. You have to make sure that you evaluate all the evidence, and you have to make sure that when you're evaluating that evidence, it's credible, because you're going to have to prove this in a court of law. Like I said earlier, when you're talking about a criminal investigation, it cannot be the same standard as of civil, which is a preponderance of evidence. This has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you talk about beyond a reasonable doubt, it's basically a reasonable doubt is defined mostly, it's often conceptualization as the evidence is so compelling that the logical conclusion is that the individual is guilty. And it's always held to a basically 95% certainty, which is very similar in statistical analysis when your P-scores have to be 0.05 or less, which basically that's saying that it's a 95% probability that something that you're trying to prove as it relates from a statistical standpoint is true, or from a criminal standpoint, evidentiary evidence, it has to be 95%, because you don't want innocent people going to jail. So basically, in layman's term, is a lot more than benefit of the doubt. It has to be conclusive. So, when you look at it from that perspective, that's why these investigations take some time, and it has to be robust. Like I always say, it can't be capricious, arbitrary, or gregarious. It has to be pointed. It has to be something that can be proven, because it's going to be challenged by the defense. You have to make sure that you're going to make sure that the questions you're going to anticipate that defense attorneys are going to ask can be answered in a way where the jury will see that the individual is guilty. So that's why it's painstaking efforts that go into place before you actually accept a charge of this magnitude. And when the police officers get the information, they give it to the DA. The DA determines whether or not they're going to go to trial with it. That's not the police. We are basically the individuals who give the information. The DA is actually the ones who try the case, and the jury is the one that makes the determination, or if it's a judge trial, of guilt and innocence. And you have to make a compelling argument in something of this magnitude, because you're talking about somebody's freedom being taken maybe for the rest of their life. So you can't just do it without doing your due diligence.
So what's likely to happen next now that the mother has been arrested?
Okay, basically the investigation is going to be continued. They're going to look for more evidence. They're going to put the case together. They're going to bring witnesses in. They're going to bring information from her past in. They're going to look into that and drill down on why she was given custody of the child, because that's one of the things that they're going to probably the defense will use. Say, well, if she was such a bad mother, why they give the information? Why did they give the child back to her?
Great question.
Which is a great question. I'm just speculating, because I'm not a lawyer, and I've been out of the police department for over 20 years, but I still remember a little bit. And I was an adjunct professor at Loyola and Southern and Dillard, so I had to stay abreast on criminal justice matters as it relates to the trial process and the adjudication process. So it's really a complex system, but in actuality, you have to simplify it for the layman's terms. In layman's terms, because the people on that jury, you have to take complicated things and break it down into the jargon and parlance that they will understand. Sometimes a lot of these lawyers complicate the evidence. So you have to be very skillful and adroit in presenting it in a way where people can understand, because the jury of their peers is not people that's lawyers or people that's college professors. It's the jury of your peers. So when you make your case, it has to be a compelling case, and basically it's going to they're going to determine the guilt or innocence of the individual that's actually being tried.
Yeah. Well, we'll stay tuned to that and see what the developments are in the coming days. At this point, I'm guessing that there won't be daily developments, but an important investigation that will continue. Again, we have an important election coming up on October 11th. It is time to register to vote or check your registration. Make sure you are registered to vote. If you are not registered, or if you not sure whether you are still registered, so make sure that you check on that. The first day of early voting is in just a few days, September 27th. So early voting starts September 27th and will continue through October 4th. And you can still register to vote. You can do it online. You can do it in person. And you can vote by mail if you request a mail ballot. You can plan to vote early. You don't have to plan to vote on October 11th and then have something happen that inconveniences you. There are opportunities to hear from mayoral candidates and other candidates coming up in the next several days. So make sure that you are on the lookout for those opportunities. For instance, there is a small business mayoral forum, and that's going to be September 11th, Thursday, September 11th, 6:30 to 8:30. That's going to be at 4035 Washington Avenue. The networking hour starts about 5:30, and at 6:30 the forum will take place. So we'll provide you with some more information about that tomorrow. There are a number of organizations that are a part of that event, including Propeller and New Corps and COFA, New Orleans East Matters, Stay Local, Thrive New Orleans. So a number of groups have come together to make sure that you have the opportunity to hear from candidates, and that is going to be on Thursday. Meanwhile, on tomorrow night, the Urban League of Louisiana and its affiliated partners, including the NAACP New Orleans branch, the Links chapters, Power Coalition, Housing, NOLA, Black Voters Matters, and others, are hosting a mayoral debate on tomorrow night, Tuesday, September 10th at 7 p.m. And before I go on, let me make sure you understand. The Urban League ain't playing. So when they say 7 p.m., they mean everything's timed and ready to go. I had the pleasure of moderating one of the things is a whole book and binder and times. And so you know it's going to be showtime. And the people who have confirmed for that event, which is tomorrow night at 7 p.m., are Joseph Joe B. Coolidge Jr., Eileen Carter, Russell Butler, Renata Collins, Royce Duplessis, Frank Robert Janusa, Helena Moreno, Oliver Thomas, and Richard Ricky Twiggs. So each of them have signed up to be available and to answer questions. It's a very structured program that the Urban League and their partners have lined up. So this is the last in a series of By the People debates, a civic stage for candidates, communities, and consequences. Make sure that you get there. By the way, this one is live streamed. If for some reason you can't get there, you'll be able to watch it live as it is happening. You can go to urbanleaguela.org/bythepeople, urbanleaguela.org/bythepeople to register to attend or to find out more information. And by the way, when you go, I mentioned this earlier in the program, there's an opportunity for people who are present to ask questions, not raise your hand and go up to the mic. but there's an opportunity to scan a code and enter your question, and hopefully your question will be answered at that forum, at that debate. So we've had a good show, Chief. We've heard from Lakeisha Gray Sewell, from founder of Girls Like Me Project, Inc. So I know there are some of our Facebook folks who wanted to make sure they got the name of the organization again. So that's founder of Girls Like Me Project, Inc. Girls Like Me Project, Inc. And if you do a search for Lakeisha Gray Sewell, she'll come up just by herself.
Right.
Because she's got it like that.
Yep.
So, and we also want to thank Blake Patterson, reporter for the Times-Picayune, New Orleans, NOLA.com, for giving us insight on the poll. Found out a little bit more about who these people are and who these people aren't. And we want to thank all of you all listening on AM radio, on the internet, and on Facebook. Lorraine, Cedric, Cheryl, Edwin Paul Compass III, Michonne, Fern, Edwin, again, Michonne, Sharon, and Cheryl, Lorraine, and I know there are others too. So we thank you for listening and for watching. Stay tuned to WBOK 1230 AM for The Front Porch with Kemba and Graylin. They'll be coming up next. You're listening to WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Amazing feeling air today. Humidity is much lower. Partly cloudy skies with highs in the mid to upper 80s. It won't feel